we have The Lost Soul Arts of Demon Souls by Matthewmatosis. Like I said earlier in the stream, this was one of the free channels somebody recommended, and two of them have videos that are extremely lengthy. Matthewmatosis also has some lengthy ass videos. He has like a literal 6 hours video about Dark Souls 1. I will be honest, I will probably watch that in my own time because that's the kind of video I like to see. But for the stream, that seems fucking just inconceivable to watch something like that. But maybe, I don't know, maybe down the line I will decide I wanna have like a fucking 24-hour stream and just react to long bullshit like that on as a like a fucking sleepover vibe party, and just fill the playlist with long ass videos. But that's definitely like a video idea for the far future. For now, we just gotta stick to the shorter one. So yeah, this is basically like my probe into how Matthewmatosis takes on the channel. Quite a popular video of his about the magic. I think it's about magic from Demon Souls, which might be interesting. I never watched this channel, I never watched this video, so I'm not sure how good it will actually be, but I have a sneaking suspicion it's gonna be good. I still think Demon Souls is my favorite of the Souls games, by which I mean the games which actually have it in the title. I admire the story, freedom, and weapon movesets. I actually did a level 1 run, which wasn't as hard as it sounds. I'll be real, I think Demon Souls is literally my least favorite FromSoft game ever, including like fucking Kingsfield. I bounced off of it so badly, and like but to be fair, I never played the original. I just played the Blue Point remake. I mean, it's the same game, just looks better, but you know what? I kinda retract my statement. All of my problems are not about Demon Souls. All of my problems specifically are about the remake, so it doesn't make sense. Because I really hate how they handled the remake by not modernizing. Like, when you remake a game, the first thing you should always do is modernize it to a degree. Like, it shouldn't just be pretty graphics and that's it. I'm sorry, fucking Resident Evil 2 remake got me thinking about how different my favorite games could be, and like, it's just, you know, there was a world before Resident Evil 2 remake and there is a world after Resident Evil 2 remake, and that's just how it goes. What happened in the remake? Nothing. It's extremely gorgeous, but it's literally just Demon Souls. Like, all of the fucking annoying things that are in Demon Souls are still in the remake, which is kinda disappointing for a fucking like full price remake. The only thing, as always, it's the same problem I have with Dark Souls 1 Remastered. It's just, why the fuck did you even bother, man, coming up to me with this shit? It's the same game. Why the fuck would you want me to pay again for the same game? The only thing positive I will always say about this type of situation is I think the UI looks worse in the remake. Oh, and the opening cutscene is so much worse, bro. I like, holy shit, we were making fun of that for my entire playthrough with my girlfriend. We never played the original, but the original intro has so much aura compared to the remake intro. And yeah, the UI looks uglier. It does. It looks like a placeholder. The only positive thing I really have to say is that always, in a case like this, the multiplayer revival was the big thing. Same with Dark Souls 1 Remastered. Like, if you spend money to experience Dark Souls multiplayer alive again, I wouldn't even fucking blame you, because that's just a vibe that, you know, goes away after a couple of years. You have like a small window to enjoy Invasions, co-op at its peak, and then it's fades away. So, and Dark Souls 1, special place in my heart when it comes to fucking forest invasions and shit. And Demon Souls also, The Yellow Monk. I had some invasions as the Yellow Monk. It was fucking great, you know. It was it's still the same piece of shit fight that you can just eat a bunch of grass and troll the other guy and like demolish his equipment with a scraping spear. But I got to experience it, you know, and that's great. On the original, I doubt I would find like a invasion in the original by now. But I think remakes should be something more than just here are new graphics. Enjoy. You know, that's literally what a remaster is, you know. Anyway, yeah, got a little bit off topic. Demon Souls has some vibes. Anyway, this video contains spoilers for Demon Souls, Dark Souls 1, 2, 3, and Bloodborne, so no watching if you are afraid of spoilers.
Dark Souls. It's a game and a series that needs no introduction, so I haven't bothered to write one. Instead, I'm going to get straight to the point. As much as these games have been revered and discussed to death, it seems to me as though the actual origin of the series has all but been forgotten, and I don't just mean by the community. Many of the merits and ideals of Demon Souls have faded away in the following entries, starting even as early as the original Dark Souls.
Oh yeah, I just wanna say one thing about the remake that I can't believe didn't go away. Equipment load. I can't fucking believe Bluepoint kept maximum equipment load for things in your backpack. I get that that would make Stockpile Thomas kind of obsolete. It wouldn't because he would be the bottomless box, man. You just give him items you don't want in your inventory. The fucking equipment load for the backpack is so annoying, man. And I think they added, I don't think that was in the original, you could send items to the box, which was cool. Still, holy fuck, so annoying, man. And why? And why does that exist, you know? First thing they got rid of in Dark Souls 1 was that shit. And second, of course, soul form and human form, losing half of your maximum HP and then having to equip Cling Ring for the entire playthrough. What a dog shit idea. So let's not look back at Demon Souls with rose-tinted glasses. It had some cool ideas. But brother, the base mechanics of that game, like, I'm just gonna say it, I think Dark Souls 1 is way better as a complete product. But it had vibes, but it definitely had vibes. And that mechanic where you could climb ledges, that was actually fucking good. I don't know why they didn't include it for any other game.
After Demon Souls was a surprise hit, FromSoft set out to make it again, only this time bigger and better.
Also World Tendency also fucking sucks. Holy shit.
In many ways, Dark Souls was an ambitious sequel. The world was much larger and interconnected, which added a whole new satisfaction to exploration. The inability to warp from one area to another forced players into lengthy journeys, giving the game a sense of isolated adventure that even Demon Souls couldn't offer. The animations were more polished, with even more of that satisfying weight that the series is known for. There were a bunch of refinements to the formula, like Estus, which removed potential downtime and helped balance out the challenge.
Oh yeah, not even to mention grass. My god, grass was bad. Holy.
It even had a few completely new mechanics of its own, like Covenants. I think it's a great sequel, and judging by its
Covenants are like, it's whatever. Like, Covenants are a weird mechanic.
Phenomenal success, it seems that many...
And also locking powerful spells after like 150 fucking... After you help somebody 150 times with a boss. Are you fucking kidding me? What was Miyazaki smoking on that day? Also, everything to do with Gravelording in Dark Souls 1. What the fuck was that? That shit didn't work. You couldn't get that Covenant up. There were some legitimate problems.
Other people agree. There is one important caveat though. It's not innovative. Many of the notable features that people assign to Dark Souls originated in Demon Souls and were simply brought across because they worked last time. The goal of Dark Souls wasn't
Yeah, kind of true. Like, it was built... Dark Souls definitely built upon the bones of Demon Souls. Dark Souls 1 has a lot of things that are better, however, it also has an issue that causes me not to play it again. How frustrating the platforming was. Oh, classic. FromSoft loves adding platforming to these types of games, and they are always done poorly. Locking character stories behind Covenants was dog shit. Oh yeah, that one was especially egregious too. Platforming in Dark Souls 1, I don't remember if there was a lot of necessary platform. There were a lot of shortcuts, there were a lot of platforming secrets, but that's a given that platforming in any FromSoft game that doesn't have a dedicated jump like Elden Ring, is fucking horrible. I am with you 100% on that. But Demon Souls didn't have platforming, but it had some areas that were like the very narrow pathways above the swamp were fucking atrocious with the gargoyles and shit. But the same thing can be said about a lot of areas in Dark Souls 1, so that's not a thing to say that Dark Souls 1 was better. I mean, whatchamacallit. Grave of the Giants exists. Grave of the Giants is single-handedly brings Dark Souls 1 fucking down by existing, man. Some characters also required you to platform to meet them in points or get something. Yeah. Demon Souls had one part with optional platforming to meet a character who gives the greatest story revelation in the game. That part sucked too. I don't remember which one is that. I hated the Giant's Graveyard. What a dog shit part. Yeah, that shit was so bad. And everything, like Lost Izalith, also infamous, but at least like you couldn't fall to your fucking death every 3 steps until you reached Bed of Chaos. Oh my god. Bed of Chaos was also bad.
Innovation, it was refinement. FromSoft already had a formula that worked, and they set out to exploit that fact. This is what really sets
that is very true.
Demon Souls apart from the rest of the series. Early in its development, the project was assumed by many in FromSoft to already be a failure. Maybe a demoralizing way to think, but also liberating in a sense. That assumption is the main reason why director Hidetaka Miyazaki was able to take control of the project, and why he and his team were able to implement some, at the time, bizarre features.
Yeah, this story I know that basically they were like, we have a sinking ship, this game is a failure, we have no ideas, and Miyazaki was like, please fucking put me... He was like, it got to the point where he was begging management every day, please put me in charge, I can make it fucking work. And then he lied to the management about... he lied that he was making a clone of fucking Morrowind, bro, or Oblivion, I forget which one. Holy shit. That's so fucking funny. Didn't that also happen with Wonderful 101, where they didn't even have its core mechanics until after another studio help or something like that? I don't know that story, so I can't say for sure.
With Demon Souls, there was a sense that the developers were just doing whatever the hell they wanted, playing with conventions and trying new features out with little care about how appealing they would be to a mass audience. World Tendency is a perfect example of this. Some developers believe that dynamic difficulty tuning is the correct way to build their games, and even games in general. This method of design has been gaining traction since around the 90s, and given its success, it can be found in subtle forms in many mainstream games today. Other people, like myself, prefer when a game is consistently difficult, so there's a more genuine sense of satisfaction when you finally overcome the challenge at hand. Demon Souls turns its back on both of those ideas and cuts your health in half as soon as you die. As if that isn't enough, repeated deaths will increase enemy stats and eventually spawn additional Black Phantoms to make the stage even tougher.
I mean, that's just shit. That's just a shit idea. I don't know if the creator of the video expected a round of applause and a big, yeah, let's fucking go! Like, there is a lot of good things to say about Demon Souls difficulty. Mainly that, like he said, there is no dynamic difficulty system or anything. But the Black Phantoms and World Tendency and the body form, that was all shit. That was literally the worst part of the entire experience. What does he mean? It certainly was unique. it certainly was different. I don't think it was good. But overall, the difficulty was good. That's what made the game pop out, that it wasn't another fucking Skyrim, you know. Hold up, that only happens if you die while alive and not a ghost. Obviously, we know this. Demon Souls, guy. Oh, we love to see Demon Souls. We know everything about it. Like, we in the know, we know, you know, that only happens in the when you are in human form, and so that's why you never recover your humanity, or like, yeah, it's called human form, I think, right? It's one of those very forgettable names, and you just equip the cling ring, right? And you get 25% of your max HP back. We know this, obviously, but a lot of people back in the day didn't know that is a bad idea. So it was like a noob trap, you know, and that's what makes it especially bad, that it was exactly that, a noob trap. Because when you're playing the game for the first time, you're like, it cuts my fucking HP in half? Oh, okay, I'm using this item to get back my thing, man. And then, like, the extra stupid part of killing yourself in the Nexus to avoid black tendency, like, come on, we have to admit that they weren't cooking with that. Dark tendency does give better rewards, at least, I think. Yeah, I think. See, that's another aspect of it, which is triple fucked up. Dark ward tendency had better drop rates for items, if I'm remembering correctly. So again, people in the know could use this system, and the system became kind of better if you knew a lot about the game. But for new players, that was completely fucking useless, you know. They were like, enemies started dropping more grass, or did Dark Phantoms drop less grass? I don't remember. But either way, they couldn't use it because they didn't know this information, because you couldn't find it in game. You had to read the guides and the forums, you know, to know all of that. So I was so fucking pissed when they brought back the grass system for Bloodborne in the forms of vials. What a fucking stupid ass system, man. I played a lot of games before that had similar mechanics, so maybe that's why I liked it more. You know, there is, like, even if I think it was very bad, it's bad mainly for mass appeal purposes, but it is unique. Like, this, like, they don't make games like this anymore, you know? So you definitely have something cooking there, where classic games had shit like tendency and different storylines blocked behind the different tendencies. But for a purpose, like when I was going through it for completionist purposes, when I was trying to see the most content I could, the word tendency stuff was just using a fucking stone and killing yourself. That's not very, you know, interactive. Yeah, the Bloodborne blood vial was very weird in between.
Now, you might think this is a poor mechanic. There are some very sound, logical arguments against it. I'm not saying that every game should work this way, but hopefully you can understand that I find this refreshing for the simple fact that it's different from everything else.
Okay, that part I understand, and that part I definitely, like, also kind of said. It was unique. It was what made the game kind of stand out from the rest. That's definitely, like, you ain't gonna see this shit in fucking Skyrim, brother. Like, come on.
This, for me at least, was the real appeal of Demon Souls. Time and again, they threw out the rulebook and just did whatever they felt like. Conventional wisdom says that struggling players should be offered a helping hand, not pushed down a well. Conventional wisdom says that a boss should be killed by the player, not themselves. Conventional wisdom says that secrets should be...
I mean, to be fair, Maiden Astrea, like, is not the boss. Her fucking bodyguard is the real boss, so... And she also does that only after you beat him, so, like, you know. But it was a cool, like, cinematic moment, you know. Like, Maiden Astrea is one of my favorite bosses from all of fucking Demon Souls. Like, holy shit, what a statement. It wasn't that much of a boss, it was a fucking statement, brother. It was like lore told to you through gameplay. That shit FromSoft excels at, man.
Secret, not pointed out by someone else. Conventional wisdom says that important NPCs and vendors are off limits, not murdered while the player isn't looking. Conventional wisdom says that the final boss should be an epic showdown, a test of the player's skills, not a
Okay, don't pretend that King Aland was good in any form. Like, let's not kid ourselves that King Aland was a cool reveal in terms of lore, but it was fucking disappointing when to find out this is the final boss.
pathetic, harmless blob. It's the boss fights that stick out the most, with 4 of the 5 archdemons clearly being designed to provide a memorable experience above all else. Even False King Alant, the most traditional of the 5, has an incredibly punishing grab which actually de-levels the player character, something the series hasn't seen since. This kind of experimentation doesn't always work. There's not many people out there who'll defend the
Did you know that you can get infinite levels because of this grab? I forgot I forgot how precisely that works, but you could literally get to infinite levels by abusing this. It's kind of funny. I think this is why I'm not as hyped for the rest of the games. They didn't expand as much on the things I liked most out of Demon's Souls. They were not the word tendency or the grass. Those were not tendency or the grass stuff. Kinda true. Kinda true.
This kind of experimentation doesn't always work. There's not many people out there who'll defend the encounter with the Dragon God, but an occasional failure is to be expected if a game is stepping outside the norm so much. To me, an anticlimactic non-boss like Maiden Astraea has just as much value, if not more, than something more traditional like Flame Lurker. There are other games I can play if I want a Flame Lurker-esque experience, but only one game has Maiden Astraea.
True.
Later entries in the series, including the original Dark Souls, have largely done away with those weird boss fights, to the detriment of the overall experience.
Okay, but they supplemented them instead with some of the best traditional boss fights you can have in gaming, though. So, you know, it's a trade-off. It's not like in ideal world, they would have like 2 game series running alongside each other, Dark Souls and Demon Souls, and one would have all the weird stuff, and Dark Souls would just have the stuff it does now that has way more mass appeal. But like, you know, the mass appeal stuff sadly wins the bug because it brings the fucking money, you know. That's just how it goes. Speaking of mass appeal, I feel very bitter towards the Soul series coming from an Armored Core fan. For me, it's like, it felt like FromSoft kept on milking the same Souls formula for decades. Yeah, like, Demon Souls fans are not the only one, like, getting robbed. And there are probably people who liked Kingsfield way more than Demon Souls and Dark Souls. So, sadly, like, for me, it's great because I like those new things. But, you know, there are a lot of things that they kind of left in the dust. And also, I think I cared the most with the story out of any Souls game. Would you mind if I give spoiler for Demon Souls? I think I played through the entire story. I probably didn't get all the story bits, but yeah, go ahead. Like, I don't mind.
To understand why this is a bad thing, we have to confront a hard truth that few people seem to want to face about the Souls games, including FromSoft themselves, but here it is. The combat is nothing remarkable. Before you get your codpiece in a twist, keep in mind that doesn't equate to mediocre gameplay. As a whole, it's hugely elevated by generally great level design, player freedom, loadout options, and some unique supplemental mechanics like World Tendency, Covenants, and Insight. The stamina system...
Call me fucking insane, but I think, like, and I mean comparatively to other video games, it has actually amazing combat because, like, you know, Elder Scrolls where you just kinda fucking press the button and there is almost zero reactivity from the enemy. So, like, I'm sorry, I don't kind of buy this point, but...
puts other action RPGs to shame. The animations are great and the controls are tight, but in terms of actual complexity, there's not much going on. There's not much depth, and that wouldn't be a problem, except that the series has increasingly leaned on its action elements more and more as time...
That's also a weird statement because, like, I think some of my favorite memories from FromSoft game is PvP in Dark Souls 2, and like the amount of moves you had with a katana in Dark Souls 2, like backstep into the fucking running. Slash, like all of the options were so hyper specific for such hyper specific situations. I kind of think he kind of is overselling this point. If they wanted to improve the Souls formula, they should have leaned heavily towards the RPG side of things rather than the typical R1 spam. Yeah, R1 spam was always there with like rapiers being, rapiers being ever fucking present in basically every single game. So, but if you knew what they were doing, at least in PvP, because obviously in PvE a boss is not gonna fucking parry you, but in PvP at least that shit was so easily punishable with a parry at least. So the revelation in Demon Souls that the soulless great demon is actually the same being as the creator god. It's hunted, it split apart its soul to give souls to all life was incredible to me. After losing its soul and mind, it now seems to collect all souls to restore itself, and it might not even remember it's the creator god. Yeah, I think like also, obviously, the reveal that all magic, both miracles and sorceries, come from the same god. Like, there was a lot of good lore stuff in Demon Souls. But yeah, like I said, I just think this system is so much better than, I don't know, Witcher 3, for example, or what's like a popular hack and slash thing? Like, Witcher 3, like all of them, Dragon Age systems. I just think it's a cool combat to have to, not super familiar with Souls mechanics, other than skill issue of getting slapped. Lots of customizability and options and some weirdly sexy monsters. Yeah, man, like they went fucking wild with some of those designs. Demon Souls had a level of dark fantasy I felt Dark Souls didn't live up to. That is certainly a thing you can say, and a lot of people would agree. I think I would agree too. Demon Souls' atmosphere was like more oppressive.
Time has gone by. Bloodborne is the clearest example of this so far. The player character's starting stamina is generous, and it's easy to level up every useful stat for your build with no meaningful trade-offs whatsoever. At this point, stats mainly exist so struggling players can grind out an advantage and carry on, the kind of self-controlled dynamic difficulty the series excels at. To put it simply, Bloodborne is more action, less RPG. Unfortunately, even with the addition of trick weapons, there's still a case to be made that overall the combat doesn't even have depth exceeding basic action games. If you're a staunch defender of the series, this is where you might be tempted to rattle off all the different attack animations your favourite weapon has. After all, there's two-handed attacks, jumping attacks, running attacks, charged attacks, transformation attacks, and probably more. It's true that there are differences in range and damage, but the effect on the enemy is usually identical. They lose some health, possibly suffer some hit stun, which either lasts...
Yeah, like I said, this mostly PvP used this, and PvP in Bloodborne wasn't like that great, I think. So...
long enough to get another attack in, or it doesn't, in which case you go back on the defensive until your next opening. Positioning is important, but that's about the extent of it. If anything, Bloodborne actually has less depth than any other game in the series because shields are disincentivized and unable to parry, making the two things mutually exclusive when players used to be able to do both without having to swap between them. The magic implement...
True, still one of the best games in the broader series, I guess. Demon Souls also had like very punishing for using the wrong type of damage against enemies. Like if you used piercing or slashing against those stone enemies in the mines, fucking forget about it. It felt nothing. I was actually pissed that they brought this back in Elden Ring, man. But in Elden Ring it was kind of easier to get around, but still. To the point where punching skeletons was a better fucking idea than hitting them with a sword, which is kind of ridiculous when you get down to it, you know.
Orientation is also quite bare bones, and it even lacks a kick option, although that would be irrelevant anyway since so few enemies have a defensive stance. At the end of the day, your options generally boil down to a low-cost light attack, a high-cost heavy attack, and a ranged option of some sort, be it a spell, an item, a bow, or a gun. Apart from destroying the grounded aesthetic these games are or were known for, the weapon arts of Dark Souls 3 are kind of a step in the right direction, but the synergy between all these things is practically non-existent. For example, there's few spells that allow you to set up an enemy for an interesting melee attack and vice versa. In terms of defensive options, the series is a lot better, with the ability to block, parry, or dodge most regular attacks. These go a long way during regular combat encounters, but unfortunately against bosses, parrying is often completely impossible and blocking is often ill-advised, which leaves you with rolling as your one and only defensive action. So prepare to roll, again and again, and again and again and again. When you're not rolling, you'll generally be getting 1 to 2 hits in with whatever weapon you choose, hits that usually provoke no response from the boss whatsoever, making every weapon basically the same thing apart from whatever damage types and numbers it has. That's not to say that bosses like this can't be good. They can be. At their worst, they're...
I mean, he's talking like this doesn't apply to Demon Souls. I'm a little bit confused because, I mean, Demon Souls did the exact same thing. Am I fucking incorrect? Demon Souls was a very strange game for me. It more or less serves as proof of concept for what became Dark Souls. But for some reason I fell in love with it more than Dark Souls. Maybe it's the linearity. Demon Souls like offered different vibes, that's completely correct. Like I said, there are people who would love more Kingsfield, there are people who would love more Demon Souls, there are people who would love more Dark Souls, there are people who would love more Bloodborne. I personally would love more Sekiro. I fucking loved Sekiro most of their games. You know. Demon Souls had a lot of reactive bosses. I mean, okay, Tower Knight and who? Like I can't remember a single boss other than Tower Knight that wasn't like that.
Camera-eating monstrosities with infinite stamina that blatantly read your inputs, cancel their recovery animations and have nonsensical tracking, but at their best, they're fair, challenging and have great presentation. False King Allant is a great boss, so are Artorias, Ludwig and Sister Fried among many others FromSoft have put together over the years, but they're also undeniably samey. You go in, you learn the moveset, maybe you
I mean, that's true, but, you know, sure, that's true, but that's why people kinda come back, because nobody does it like FromSoft does, you know.
Die a few times along the way until you know the boss's moves like the back of your hand, then you dodge past them, punish at the right times and win the battle. It's perfectly serviceable gameplay, but doing it 20 times in one game is just excessive. This has been the go-to boss design philosophy for FromSoft ever since our tour.
But okay, for you personally it's excessive, but you're in the minority, my dude. Like, excessive according to who? Excessive according to you. Everybody decides like which part of everybody decides how many bosses should a FromSoft game have, and literally every single time it's I kinda wish there were more bosses. Like, people play Elden Ring and they still go, I kinda wish there were more bosses in fucking Elden Ring, man. Except that ulcerated tree spirit, that fucking we should have less ulcerated tree spirits. Okay, Old Hero is also a good one. Penetrator? I don't know, he's just as normal as Fight, I think. Old King, I don't know. Old Hero, I forgot though. Old Hero was fucking great, man. Old Hero is, Old Hero, Tower Knight, and Maiden Astrea are examples of, like, yeah, Penetrator is kinda terrible, I think. I mean, he looks cool, but as a fight, he's kind of boring. Not to mention that if you do the NPC questline, he basically solos him, which is cool as fuck, but as a boss, not that great.
Glorious of the Abyss, and fights have only gotten more shonen anime over time. To be clear, there's absolutely nothing wrong with simple combat mechanics. I'm not saying you should be able to juggle hollows or anything, but if the game is going to be so relentlessly focused on action, then I have fewer reasons not to just play a better action game instead. What I can't get...
What? What game is he talking about? I am sorry, this is making me kinda crazy. What the fuck is he? Okay, so go play through Devil May Cry 1 through 5. Nowadays, back then you had 1 through 3, I think. Then play Bayonetta. Back then you had only one Bayonetta. Those are 4 games. What other fucking better action games my dude is looking for? And those don't have the aesthetics of Dark Souls or Demon Souls. What? That's kind of crazy thing to say. Penetrator does have his punch move through your armor shields, which I'm pretty sure is behavior dependent. I am not, I am definitely not qualified enough to... Oh yeah, but Vanquish is like a shooter. Vanquish is fucking great though, but it's a shooter, so I'm thinking like more melee focused. But yeah, but you can. How many times can you play DMC 3 before it gets a little bit stale and you are like, oh, this Dark Souls thing looks cool. This dude is kind of speaking like Demon Souls is the like you need to pick one game and play it for the rest of their life. Like that's not how any of this works. And believe me, man, I played all of DMCs, even the reboot, even 2. For fuck's sake, I played 2, man. I love DMC, but like, how many times can you play them before you're like, I could go for something different? By punch, I should have written massive fucking stab. Yeah, like I said, I am not that familiar with Penetrator, mostly because Penetrator has weirdly like low HP for some reason. I don't know why he goes down so easily.
Elsewhere are the memorable experiences that Demon Souls presented by taking risks. The Archdemons are the clearest example of that, but even its more traditional boss fights serve a greater purpose. Demon Souls' greatest strength is how it pulls you into its bleak, dangerous world so that you think about situations the way you would if you were actually there. This is something that the Souls games continue to do kind of well, but Demon Souls still does it the best of them all, because excluding the innovative online features, almost everything else works in...
The bosses in earlier DMC games were very weird. Oh yeah, like... everything about DMC2 was fucking terrible, so not much to speak on there. Basically everything that's not Virgil or forget his name from 1 were like kind of weird. Oh yeah, and Mundus was, holy fuck, the last boss of that DMC1 was so bad. The fucking flying sections, oh my god.
Service of that
I forgot about all of that. Why did you bring that shit up, man? You're making me go through a hysterical response in my mind's eye. Holy.
Phalanx, Leechmonger, Tower Knight, Fool's Idol, Old Hero, Maneaters, and Armor Spider all have quirks to their design or their arena that the player can exploit if they figure out. You don't outright win by doing so, but you gain a big advantage if you're willing to use your brain. It's a almost everything else.
I am 100% agreeing with him.
Works in service of that larger goal. Phalanx, Leechmonger.
But my brother in Christ, I don't think anybody needs help with Leechmonger. That is, Leechmonger and Trash Colossus or whatever he's called were also like laughably easy. I don't know what happened, like why they had such low HP values, but laughably easy bosses. Holy. I never finished DMC because it was terrible. You didn't miss a thing, bro. You didn't miss a fucking thing. Okay, there is one great cutscene in DMC too. So maybe you missed that one. Standing in the corner with dual pistols. Yup. In general, the fucking guns were so overpowered.
Tower Knight, Fool's Idol, Old Hero, Maneaters, and Armor Spider all have...
And like other examples he gives here, yeah, like figuring out the arena and like how the boss interacts with it is crucial, so...
Quirks to their design or their arena that the player can exploit if they figure out. You don't outright win by doing so, but you gain a big advantage if you're willing to use your brain. It's a deceptively simple concept. Thinking about how to survive a boss by using clever tactics is exactly what a real adventurer would do. In a sense, the battle happens just as much outside the fog door as inside. Because of that, the mindset of the character and the player align in such a way that it pulls the player further into the experience. On the other hand, dodging telegraphed attacks, which come out in predefined combos, is just exploiting your knowledge that the AI is acting within the constraints of a computer game. This has the opposite effect. It widens the gap between the character and the player. Most elements of Demon's Souls can be viewed
I mean, he kind of, ironically enough, sounds like Seth kind of made fun of people like this in his review of Elden Ring. He said that the ideal way to play FromSoft games is to do a lobotomite run. So, you scramble your frontal cortex and remove your pattern recognition so you cannot be tainted by having experience with a video game. That's what it kind of sounds like he's suggesting when he says things about like dodging patterns of an AI inside of video game. I mean, sure, but like, we can like play the video games and have fun. I forgot about Fool's Idol. That was another good one that reacted well to the player. I mean, I guess because like it was more like a hazard course. But like, I don't think that's reacting to the player though, right? I mean, she just teleports away when you come to her. That's not much of a reaction. It was a good boss. The whole gimmick with you have to first figure out the revive and then you have to remember the symbols on the floor. All of that was fucking great. I really liked that boss, but
through this same lens. The environments are filled with difficult...
It's wild that I thought he's gonna talk about... you know what I thought this video is about? I thought he's gonna talk about spells from Demon's Souls that didn't make it to the Dark Souls franchise or something. I didn't think he was gonna talk about all of this, though.
Encounters, traps and ambushes, not just for their own sake, but to encourage a slow, methodical approach to exploration. This contrasts with the blasé way most protagonists throw themselves into dangerous situations. In reality, people tend to act more cautiously when they have a chance of being brutally murdered, so those punishing mechanics encourage you to think and behave that way. Perpetually autosaving over a single save file reinforces this as well. Even a trivial choice can feel like it has serious consequences because it's irreversible, just like real life. Of course, these elements work better the more unknowns you go up against. In other words, the element of surprise is pretty important. Venturing into Demon's Souls felt like venturing into the unknown, not because it was narratively unpredictable, but because it was mechanically unpredictable. Even once you got used to the Soul series features, which were brand new at the time, it still made sure to throw curveballs at you on a regular basis. Lack of careful observation was punished. NPCs weren't always what they appeared to be. Bosses often had...
Holy fuck. Where were you when you found out that a fucking NPC is killing NPCs in your fucking base? Holy shit, that's... No other game has balls to do what Demon's Souls and Dark Souls 1 did with like an NPC hunter that kills other NPCs. Holy fuck, man. That's such a cool concept.
Had unique mechanics, and even the environments could be polar opposites of each other. Try one archstone and you'll end up in the claustrophobic halls of Latria. Try the other and you're headed towards a sprawling poison swamp. Incidentally, while you're spending so much time scanning the scenery for...
That is true. The environments felt completely different. I mean, Tower of Latria in itself is such a masterwork of fucking environmental detail and like the vibes, man. I mean, Bloodborne is basically a sequel, spiritual successor to Tower of Latria, with all of its creepiness and Cthulhu mythology and shit, you know.
Vicious areas, you can't help but realize that the environments are actually built a lot like real places, much more so than any other game in this series. Shortcuts aren't just inexplicably one-sided gates or needlessly complex elevators, they're blockades to keep intruders out or mechanisms for transporting materials. This is half the point of shortcuts in the first place. They're a way of presenting checkpoints without making the world seem like it was built just for your convenience. After picking up on those environmental details, you might go on to notice that the enemy design and item placements have also been carefully considered to suit the area in question. What might not even occur to you is how sparse the cutscenes are, keeping interruptions to a minimum, or that the sound design could be described as minimalist as well. Most of what you hear as you wander through the stages is completely diegetic. Even death and resurrection are contextualized by the Nexus, weakening the barrier between.
To be real, I think Demon Souls would be 200% better with difficulty selector that allows you to change things like HP reduction on death, shifting ward tendency, or where some items were. Can change a lot. You can do a lot with difficulty changes that isn't more enemy HP and damage. Yeah, people say the Souls games shouldn't have a difficulty selector, and I think that's bullshit. And you know why I will always defend that stance? Because I want hard mode. New Game Plus is too easy in every single fucking game. I want Demon Souls when I can make Penetrator have like fucking 3 times the HP because he's too easy to kill, man. Lichmonger too, and the fucking trash giant colossus, whatever. I don't know why some enemies in Demon Souls were so fucking easy to kill, and others were so fucking hard to kill. It's so weird. And yeah, I would probably also make it more easy for me with like HP reduction or shifting ward tendency is a thing I would definitely use to my advantage because ward tendency is weird. That's why I did my level 1 run. That's also kinda crazy.
Between the player and the game. By this point, the biggest thing standing between you and Boletaria are the loading screens. The word I've been avoiding is immersion, but hopefully now that I've explained it, you can see that's what it is. Demon Souls' greatest strength is its immersive quality. That alone would be enough to make it a pretty good game, but what puts it over the top is the way it capitalizes on that immersion by throwing the player into a variety of situations which they can now experience as a first-hand participant. Patch's trickery, the imposing mind flayers, Yurt's betrayal, among many others. All these things hit harder because the game does so much work establishing itself beforehand. The rest of the series has thoughtlessly replicated many ideas from Demon Souls, which often defeats the purpose and occasionally completely misses the point. The first time you have to make your way through...
That's kind of true, I have to say. A lot of like things in the series are weird homages to Demon Souls, which kinda don't make sense sometimes. Other times it results in a good fight, but...
a poison swamp, it's a new and interesting challenge. It gets your guard up, you have to think about your situation and make sure you have suitable equipment on hand. After 5 games in a row, it's become a predictable, tiresome routine. Even though it's the exact same thing mechanically.
I will give him this one, like, you know, it's the meme, oh, Miyazaki will put a poison swamp in, like, by now, it's like, it's just, you just know it's gonna be there, and usually it's not the most visually pleasing area, so I'm gonna say it, I think, like, poison swamps kinda suck.
It now pulls you out of the game rather than in. As bad as that is, there's few things worse than when the designers botch traps and ambushes. One of the most disappointing examples is the giant archer in the undead settlement. You can see this situation coming a mile away, so when you finally arrive at the field of giant arrows, it's obvious you need to think about your approach first. For a brief moment, this mimics the best of Demon Souls. You're there, as an adventurer, trying to decide how to overcome a difficult situation. You even have as much time to think about it as you like. The most reasonable line of thought is that the arrow will have a certain amount of travel time, so if you change direction after you hear the shot, you'll be safe. Wrong. The arrow magically curves in mid-air because this is no longer a series where you outsmart your opponents, it's a series where you press the roll button at the right time. To be fair to the later games, it's important to point out that flashes of Demon Souls style brilliance do show through from time to time, and it's telling that they're often some of the most memorable moments in their respective games. Intentionally turning the Sith fight into an anticlimax is far more impactful than just letting it play out normally. This is especially funny to look back on now that the series seems obsessed with multi-phase bosses that get stronger after you smack them around a bit. The reality is, when you slash a big wolf creature enough times, it has trouble standing up. Rather than let you feel like a big man all the time, Dark Souls tried to remind you of the grim reality, and it worked. I assume that most people enjoy Sif anyway because you get a pretty normal fight at the start, so how about I give you a genuinely unpopular opinion. My favourite boss in Bloodborne isn't Garmin or Ludwig or the Orphan, it's this mad bastard. Mikolash feels like a boss for people who enjoy Demon Souls because he does something a boss isn't supposed to. He runs away. Trying to catch
Now that's an unpopular opinion if I have seen one, you know.
Him while he flees and rambles like a nutcase is unlike anything else in the entire
I
series.
do think he has such strong presentation for a boss that it's just a dude. His presentation is the greatest strength, but mechanically, like, I fucking hate this dude for like for the Scooby-Doo ass chase you need to do.
This is made all the better by the way Bloodborne firmly establishes itself as a grim game. The Nightmare of Mentis is an imposing place, but at the same time there's something vaguely comedic about Mikolash's cowardly behaviour. It's not done just for the sake of it though. If anything, it would be disappointing if such a Lovecraftian game didn't have a fight against a mad scholar. It comes together well, and again, it's something I can't quite get elsewhere, which isn't to say that it's good just because it's different, but that certainly helps. In a 2009 interview...
Yeah, but then you actually fight him and he has 2 moves, man. 2 moves! He can only do 2 things! I wouldn't take him out of the game, but I didn't like him. Fair. I think that's a fair statement I can get behind. He has enough going on that I would be like, it would be actually a loss to remove him. But like, come on. When you say to me your favorite boss from Bloodborne is Mikolash, I think you are trying a little bit too hard, to be honest.
About Demon Souls, Miyazaki himself said, "When designing the bosses, I made sure that they would be varied and exciting. I prepared different gameplay and strategies for each one so that players didn't get tired of the same fight every time. We wanted to surprise players and encourage them to figure out different tactics, to think on their feet." It's been the better part of a decade since that interview, so it's fully possible that Miyazaki has changed his mind since then, but it's still a quote that resonates with me at least. If the Dancer of the Boreal Valley had been in Demon Souls, I probably would have loved it. It has an intriguing visual design, and the unconventional attack animations present a good challenge. The reason I don't enjoy it is because it's in a game filled with bosses just like it. FromSoft have long since figured out that one way they can punish players who carelessly roll around all the time is to hold the anticipation phase of attack animations for about half a second longer than you'd expect. They've completely abused this trick to the point where most bosses seem to have at least a few of those attacks, and even many basic enemies do as well. This could be a whole topic by itself, but rather than dwell on it, let's just focus on the fact that by the time you reach the Dancer, you've already had to adapt to a huge number of unconventional timings designed solely to catch you out. The thought of learning even more weird attack animations so I can roll and stab my way to victory yet again just isn't all that appealing anymore. I could point to many of the bosses in Dark Souls 3 and say that they're pretty good, but only in isolation. A great game is more than the sum of its parts. A little restraint would go a long way, as has been proven in a few other instances. Most of us can probably agree that the reveal of Irithyll in Dark Souls 3 is one of its better moments. You emerge from the catacombs and see a beautiful, snow-covered landscape topped by a crescent moon. It's a wonderful vista. One thing Miyazaki and I seem to have in common is a fondness for these kinds of snow areas. As much as I love them, and believe me I do love them, I can still see that if the game had been nothing but snowy nighttime levels up to that point, the Irithyll reveal would have meant nothing. Just because it's my favourite kind of area doesn't mean I want the whole game to be like that. It's the surprise that makes it work. Another example would be Gwyn's theme in Dark Souls 1. You ask anyone who played Dark Souls and they'll list it as one of the most memorable tunes, but would it have been as good if the entire soundtrack was somber piano music? Of course not. It's the contrast with previous boss themes that makes it stand out. My point here is that even traditional boss fights stand to benefit by including others that don't fit into the same mould. When it's a foregone conclusion that every fight will be a dodge and punish affair, they lose their impact. Call it whatever you want. Restraint, pacing, surprise, variety, contrast, it's something Demon Souls has in spades which the later games lack. Catering to a larger audience has simply sucked more and more soul out of the series. Players whine about gimmick boss fights, so bosses become basic combat encounters and nothing more. Players want honourable PvP so they can test their skills against each other in a shallow, laggy, min-maxing backstab magic spamfest instead of having fun with the things you can uniquely do in these games, like disguise yourself as an environmental doodad before kicking an unsuspecting player off a cliff. Never underestimate a community's ability to take a coup.
Fucking classic, man. Oh my god. I loved some of the bullshit that was pulled in Dark Souls 1 PvP. should have started here, I feel. Yeah, this is more like this is more coherent, but I also have things to say, but I really want him to like finish so I can do my rant at the end, I think.
Feature and use it for the most boring thing imaginable. Players want convenience so they can fast travel and respec their stats, removing absolutely any and all tension wherever possible, just like every other RPG from the past 10 years. At some point, you just start to wonder what's next on the chopping block. Maybe the next game will have a built-in function at some point wherever possible, just like every other RPG from the past 10 years. At some point, you just...
Does my dude know that he can not do it? Can somebody inform the bro that he can not use certain mechanics if he wants his fucking challenge run or something? Can somebody call him up and say that? Because like, what's the problem? What's the problem with respec? Seriously. How about this? They give us Demon Souls 2, right? And it has no respec, like it's just like Demon Souls 1 in terms of like difficulty, right? And I come in there with a meta build that I got off Fextra Life Wikipedia that removes all the tension from the game, naturally. Why don't I do that for every single game in the franchise? Oh, I don't know. Maybe because I want to have the experience. And sometimes you commit to a weapon you think sounds fun, or you want to switch to a different weapon mid-playthrough because you got used to the moveset. So you respec and then you use a different weapon. Like, it's not all about tension or like consequences of your choices. Some people want to have fun out here, I think, brother. Like, should we send Miyazaki to assassinate every Wikipedia page editor so you cannot look up things on the internet and in anticipation of a boss or something? Like, that's such a stupid fucking thing to say. I am very sorry, man. Messing up your build is the worst aspect of all the RPGs. Yeah, and those way more hardcore RPGs than Demon Souls ever was, by the way. Like, at this point, I think he doesn't want to play. I think he wants to play. Yeah, he wants to play a different game. He wants to play a classic RPG roguelike, I think. Like, oh man.
Start to wonder what's next on the chopping block. Maybe the next game will have a built-in function to back up your save files, so you don't have to think too hard about any of those pesky decisions.
You can do that. You can fucking do that for Demon Souls, man. You can literally copy your fucking save to a pen drive and get it off the console, and if something happens you didn't like, you can just plug the pen drive back in to fucking redo your character. I know this because I use this to get an achievement for different fucking endings, because I didn't want to play through the entire fucking game again just to pick the different option in the ending. Why is bro just pretending? Or maybe I guess he doesn't know Demon Souls as well as me, the expert on Demon Souls. Like, I'm clearly more knowledgeable. What the fuck is happening in this video? Parts of it, I really think it's a nice video. I really think it's a somber musings on the series and where it started and where it got, right? But my dude, some of this doesn't make sense.
If current trends keep up, sooner or later all we'll be left with is a generic blob of a game, enjoyed by everyone and loved by no one. Of course, the players don't actually make the games. You can't blame the audience for the decisions made by the developers, but it's a stark difference going from assumed failure to subculture.
Even that I don't agree with. I mean, it's the players they choose their games, and like, if a game is successful, then it seems like players want more of this game. That's why we have the unbelievable open world game epidemic, you know, because for some reason open worlds just kept them in there, you know, kept them coming back for more, even if they don't like really serve up that much of a purpose.
Phenomenon. Bloodborne was the game Sony banked on to push the PS4 into the hands of early adopters. That kind of financial pressure is a breeding ground for design by committee homogenization. As if this wasn't frustrating enough, the real twist of the knife is that even though the series has started to stagnate, it hasn't even managed to carry many refinements from one entry to another. Problems are regularly solved in one game only to be undone in the next one. Demon's Souls remains the most non-linear entry in the series and still has by far the most believable environments.
That's true.
Dark Souls abandoned the health reduction penalty, which removed the incentive to open yourself up to invasion if you weren't going to summon. As bad
My dude is defending the health reduction. My dude is thinking the health reduction was a good thing. I mean, come on.
as that was, at least it got the hollowing mechanic right by only allowing players to go human at the bonfire. In later games, players can wait until they're at the boss fog before opening themselves up to the online, making many invasions pointless. The interconnected world of Dark Souls...
Okay, I kinda get where he's coming from with this one. At first I thought that's not that bad of a... I mean, so then... Wait, but you could get invaded. You could get invaded in Dark Souls even if you were a hollow. What am I thinking of? I know in Elden Ring you can only get invaded if you're playing co-op, but in Dark Souls you could get invaded while you are hollow, so it doesn't matter. And you can always just turn the game offline, go to the boss with your humanity, and then turn the online back on and summon at the boss gates. Like, if you really wanted to, you could avoid it, like, easily. So
one is still unmatched, with Dark Souls 3 being more or less a linear progression from one end of the game to the other.
That I 100% agree with. I don't think you could get beyond. I'm pretty sure you did get invaded while hollow. Let me fucking check that. I don't know if that's Dark Souls 3 exclusive or maybe I'm tripping. Dark Souls, can you get invaded while hollow? I shit you not, there was a Google recommendation, can you get invaded while offline? Okay, in Dark Souls 2, you get invaded while you are hollow. And in Dark Souls 3, you can only get invaded while embered. Okay. So 2 should be his favorite game by far from the series, I guess. See, I think Dark Souls 2 did it the best. You either want online or you don't want online. That's both PvP and both co-op. I'm sorry, but that's how the games work. I think 2 did it best, except it had that stupid ass health reduction. And then priority was on people who were human. So Elden Ring literally killed its PvP because you could only invade while in a co-op, which fucking sucks, man. The important thing is that Google's AI answer says that you can be invaded while offline. Oh man, fucking Google AI is hilarious.
Strawberin0 is arguably the best, most intricate level design FromSoft have ever done, but it's squandered by the inclusion of fast travel from the start, same as both Dark Souls sequels. The resource management challenge of the Estus system was completely destroyed by Dark Souls 2, and while Bloodborne's
Yeah, life gems. I don't get life gems from Dark Souls 2. Like, just have this fucking healing item for free. They turned it into like a fucking Final Fantasy where you just had 99 elixirs in your fucking inventory and just go every time you needed HP. What the fuck?
While setup is at least thematically appropriate, it's still mechanically inferior. New Game Plus is still bare bones, even though Dark Souls 2 showed that remixed enemy placements could provide a fresh experience.
Yup, that is definitely valid criticism. Dark Souls 2 is still the GOAT when it comes to New Game Plus, and that is laughable since, like, everything else came such a long way. New Game Plus, it could have been so good, man. Oh, healing magic also kinda fucks up the Estus. Yeah, you're right, man.
Bloodborne used charge attacks to fix backstabs without resorting to excessive enemy tracking, but then Dark Souls 3 abandoned the idea. Ashen Estus is my favourite addition in Dark Souls 3, but at this point I fully expect it to be inexplicably dropped. Next time around we'll probably be back...
Actually was wrong, we still have FP flasks in Elden Ring.
...to a weird blood vial setup or something equally disappointing. Keep in mind, these are just the problems FromSoft actually bothered to address at some point. There's a whole host of issues that have never even been looked at. The camera is still atrocious when unlocked during combat because it does nothing and occupies the thumb you use to press the roll button. Lock-on still breaks during boss fights even though there is nobody else in the room, and the button still snaps the camera behind the player when it's not in range, with no option to disable it. I've played hundreds of hours of these games and I've never once actually wanted to use the button for that. Weapons still bounce off walls even though enemies glide right through, giving them an unfair advantage. Critical attacks...
Dark Souls 1 was so fucking especially bad with this. Like, attacks would come for you through the fucking wall, man. Oh, I have so many memories by being swiped by a halberd. I'm not sure how to say it. Through the fucking wall in Anor Londo Castle. Oh my god.
Still don't work properly on slopes. Input buffering is still overzealous and sometimes feels inconsistent, a minor annoyance in the early games but completely unacceptable for something the speed of Bloodborne or Dark Souls 3. Enemy pathfinding is still embarrassingly wonky, leading to exploitable or unpredictable movement patterns, and enemies can still be leashed, defeating the purpose of the entire combat system. If these games are going to be iterative sequels, at the very least they could be good at that, but they're not. 5 installments is more than enough time to figure out what makes these games good and iron out the kinks. Many other series have come a lot further in fewer tries. With all that said, it's finally time to take a shortcut back to my point from the beginning. Demon's Souls is one of those rare, genuinely innovative games that did enough new things its influence can be clearly felt on the gaming landscape of subsequent years. That originality is one of its best qualities, but it would be unfair to expect every game FromSoft creates to be innovative. The more important thing about Demon's Souls is how cohesive it is. It's FromSoft unfiltered, free to pursue an overarching design methodology even if that results in some unpopular decisions. That's what I want for every game developer. Games are more interesting when they're unshackled by the expectations of a narrow-minded fanbase or the financial whims of a publisher. Right now, it feels as though these games have fallen victim to one or the other, maybe both. Whatever the cause, recreating the superficial elements of Demon's Souls isn't enough to make a truly great game by itself. It needs more. The magic of Demon's Souls lies under the surface. It's a culmination of ideas and concepts that work together in unity to accomplish something greater. That's not to say it's perfect. In fact, it seems pretty clear that it wasn't even finished before it was released, but the end result is a game that proves you can have it all. Haunting visuals, immersive environments, evocative sound design, satisfying gameplay, novel mechanics, intriguing storytelling, memorable characters, fun multiplayer, and a high level of replayability. They're not mutually exclusive goals. Games don't have to be one or the other. When you do it...
Yeah, that one I have to agree with. Demon's Souls is like a great combination of all of those.
Right, you can do it all. It may not be the best at any of those things, but what it offers instead is a complete package on a level that is arguably unmatched. Unfortunately, over time, FromSoft decided to focus on some of those elements at the expense of others, and as a result, those games are more easily eclipsed by others which do those things better. Demon's Souls still stands tall because it knows what it is. A demonic soul with a heart of gold.
I just wanna say, like, some of the things he said in this are so fucking insane that I don't even know where he's coming from. I will agree with the core argument, yes, Demon's Souls is an unique game. It's also, like, to me, personally, and I know a lot of people, it's also, like, the worst Souls game FromSoft did, even below, like, Dark Souls 2. But it is unique. It would be fun if they went back at least once to try something like this again, with like not even an emphasis on like difficulty or combat, but just the immersion, the vibes basically. Would be cool for them to go back and try to like match the vibes of original Demon's Souls with something, because that's the only thing like I will always say later games. Every single FromSoft game after Demon's Souls loses to Demon Souls in terms of vibes. Bloodborne matches it, but Bloodborne is completely different direction, completely different thing. I'm talking this type of vibes, like Elden Ring, fucking great game, gets trashed by Demon Souls vibes. Same with Sekiro, same with every single Dark Souls, like the vibes are unmatched. And the story was like, I don't know if it's because of the vibes, but I always liked the Demon Souls story kind of more. But that's a thing that like Demon Souls and Dark Souls are peak when it comes to story. Bloodborne, I guess, has a great story too, but like Dark Souls 2 and Dark Souls 3 are so weird because they are trying to build upon Dark Souls 1, but they kinda say nothing interesting. And Elden Ring has a lot of names and a lot of things that happen in its world, I guess. Are they interesting? Not really. They're cool. Not that interesting though. Oh yeah, the Demon Souls also had that cool part where right before False King you fight the human versions of Phalanx, Penetrator and Tower Knight. Yeah. Elden Ring is just the messiest family reunion of all time. Still my favorite fucking FromSoft game, just because of the like seamless co-op mode, making for some of my favorite like memories I had in recent history with just fucking around in a game with friends. But yeah, like Bloodborne, Sekiro, Elden Ring, Demon Souls, I truly consider them to be, each of them has something special that the others don't. Like, Demon Souls also is not like the perfect, it's not this perfect thing he said. I think it has the vibes. I think he just wants a game that focuses on the vibes. It's your favorite after fans fix it? Yeah, the co-op experience is fucking... shit when you're playing it without the fix, because traversing the open world without torrent is ridiculously fucking shit idea, man. So before fixes, Sekiro is actually my favorite. I just vibed with it. I just wanted that heroine that was its gameplay, man. Holy, I literally remember every single thing I did in the day I beat Sword Saint Ishin, man. Holy fuck. Like that is core memory, and that happened so many years ago. What I want back from Demon Souls is being able to climb 3-foot ledges again. That's exactly right, man. I still kinda want to play the original because the remake is... I think the remake of Demon Souls is a bad remake, but like I said, it's not about the game, it's more about it being a remake, so... But, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like a video game. Everybody has their favorites. Like, nobody is more right or more wrong in their judgment. So it's an entertainment product meant to entertain. It's not it's not the original holy scriptures, like some kind of forbidden knowledge you will experience and your life will forever change. It's not the fucking Holy Grail. It's not the Ark of Covenant, It's an it's kind of like a toy, You play. I like playing with my toys, man. I fucking like playing with Demon Souls and Dark Souls. I liked playing Dark Souls 2 even, I'm gonna say. Fucking Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, Bloodborne, Elden Ring, they are all like valid experiences you can have. And whether you're a fan of one over the other, it doesn't mean that the others are bad. They just focus on the thing you don't personally like. Calling like the series as saying that it regresses with each game is kind of insane to me. Like, it just doesn't have the thing you like, man. I think it's kind of a you problem in the case of the author of this video. And it does seem like the author of the video would really vibe with old roguelike, like those sprawling roguelikes like NetHack and fucking Adam, you know? He really seems to like the vibes. I will play the remake eventually and see if it feels different. It feels, I'm telling you, it will probably feel very close to the original game, which I kinda didn't want, you know. I would love to have Demon Souls original on PC even. On PC would be perfect. Demon Souls original on PC and remake on PC. So you can have like both experiences, but only if remake was an actual remake. It's not much of a remake. It's kind of like a remaster, which is disappointing to me. When a game is remade, I expect more. I think the best argument about vibes is actually Metroid Other M. I am not very familiar with Metroid series. In practical purposes, there's no difference between going somewhere and getting a power-up and going there to have somebody authorize an ability, but it makes all the difference to the vibes. They're not perfect, may even look shite, but the experience is the true fun part. That's why I say I'm not a big fan of Dark Souls group, and not that the games are bad. Yeah, it goes both ways. Every single fucking Souls game has like a psycho opinion that I'm like standing there and going, first of all, who asked? Second of all, who cares? Like, Demon Souls fans will say, you know, all the other games have no soul. Dark Souls 1 fans will say all the other games have no soul. Dark Souls 2 fans will say it's peak. Dark Souls 3 fans will... I don't know what they actually say, because it's like... Dark Souls 3 fans will say, oh, but the bare feet of all the female characters looks the best in Dark Souls 3, so you lose. Sekiro fans will not speak to you because they're still trying to beat Sword Saint Ishin. Elden Ring fans will probably have some valid arguments about like the open world being actually the most freeing like aspect of that game. Like, just being able to go someplace else and come back to it, you know, feels great. Feels fucking great. Kingsfield fans will come back to you and say that they actually... The FromSoft peak, when they made that one floor, that when you start a game, and if you press W to move forward, a floor collapses and instantly kills you. They will say like, that's my childhood core memory, and they never will accomplish that. They will never get vibes like this. Like, honestly, FromSoft just cannot like win it all, you know. But I think the games have soul, but the innovations the games brought to telling their stories were innovative. Back when I got into Warhammer and their rulebooks told their stories the same way, I wasn't hooked at all on later stories because I'd seen that kind of presentation before. I think Pat said it, but I genuinely think that the FromSoft game you started playing with is always going to be the one that you think is the best, because it has all of the surprises for you. You know, when you go from Demon Souls to Dark Souls, you kinda go, oh, they used that trick before. But when you start with Dark Souls, it's all new, and then you go into Dark Souls 2 and you're like, oh, they used that trick before, what the fuck? You know, it's just that, like, they tend to repeat themselves when it comes to bosses, to surprises, to such, and like, I truly think, if I started with Demon Souls, I would probably be hooked on that just like you are. But I started with Dark Souls 1 Prepare to Die edition in 2011 on PC. And that's the one I have the fondest memories of. Even though I appreciated Dark Souls 2 PvP was fucking amazing. Co-op was also way better. Dark Souls 1 had some shit-ass co-op, man. Dark Souls 3 has the fucking soul arts, has like the bosses, you know. I think even if I didn't start with Demon Souls, the creator got turned into towards the Destroyer because it forgot who it was. It's more interesting that what the Dark Souls did. That could also be the truth, you know. I am not a fucking behavioral psychologist. I don't know how things like that are learned and what the Dark Soul doing. But I do agree that Sith was a fucking cool ass boss fight, you know. I do agree that we lost some of that sauce, but like there ain't no ideal FromSoft game, you know, that encapsulates all of them. There will never be ideal FromSoft game. You know why? Because the ideal FromSoft game that exists in each of our minds is a different game every single time. And that's why it cannot exist. Like, imagine if they released like a FromSoft game out of my mind and I was like, it's so peak, it's the best one they ever did, and everybody was like, dude, this is a piece of fucking shit. I mean, this is coming from a guy that thinks Cruelty Squad is like actually unironically peak. So Cruelty Squad is fucking amazing, man. And somebody else will come look at Cruelty Squad and go like, are you fucking stupid, man? This is giving me a seizure just by looking at it. So that's how it goes, you know. And yeah, that's gonna be it for today's stream, because holy, he was yapping. He was yapping and he was not stopping, man. Holy fuck, I was yapping a lot. My god. To be fair, Cruelty Squad is peak. My man or woman or anything else you identify with, I wasn't trying to be exclusive. To me, the ideal FromSoft game is one where I'm not scared of sloped floor and the platforming either works or is removed. Okay, that's, you know what? Now an ideal FromSoft game actually exists. You convinced me. They all could have been better if they just had working parkour.